This is State Senator Chuck McElhinney, and here today I have a representative from the Department of Aging from Harrisburg, Najja Orr, who's going to be here to have a little discussion with Jim McGowan and take some questions from the audience about the senior programs that the state can offer out in Harrisburg. So at this point, turn it over to Jim. Najja, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another broadcast of the Central Bucks Senior Task Force. We meet here at the Central Bucks Senior Activity Center on the first Monday of most months. We do take off in July, August, and September. June, July, August, during the summer. Let's keep it at that. We take off during the summer. And we meet at 1 o'clock here. The format of our gatherings is to have interview someone from the community who's involved in services for seniors. And this month we have Najja Orr, who I guess above all else, he runs he's the director of the Area Agency on Aging in Bucks County. And I guess you could say if anyone knows about the services to seniors, he does. So Najja, welcome. Okay, I'm glad you could come today. I know you have a very busy schedule. I understand there's upwards of 10,000 new senior citizens every day in this country. Okay, yes. So I imagine your workload, your caseload keeps increasing there.
Oh, that's definitely true.
So I had, as you and I had talked earlier, I'd been involved in social services in my background.
Yes.
I'm not involved in that right now, but I have some ideas as to what social services is all about and how much of the need there is out there.
Correct.
And I also know that there seem to be a lot of funding sources out there from the federal government, state government, county government, municipal, even gambling, okay, and lottery, I guess, which is gambling too, right? Okay.
That is true.
So what I wanted to do and help people understand are what are some of the services that are out there, okay? And I figure since I'm assuming the federal government provides more funding than any other source, but I could be wrong with that, but I'll let you, let us know that.
Okay.
So right now, where is the funding coming from? And if we could, say, federal funding, this is what it's used for, state funding, this is what it's used for, so we get an idea of that.
Correct. Okay, well, once again, thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here. When you look at our funding sources and who we are and what we do, a lot of it really started with the Older Americans Act of 1965, which was the piece of legislation that designated that there not only be federal offices, but also state and local offices that would support the needs of older adults within the community. On the federal side, we answer to and work collaboratively with the Administration on Aging, which is now ACL. They fall under ACL, the Administration for Community Living. So their responsibility is just to make sure that the states are acting appropriately and meeting the supports and service needs of those older adults, those programs that fall under the Older Americans Act. They then, of course, allocate their funding to the states, and our state office here in Pennsylvania is the Pennsylvania Department of Aging, currently with Secretary Teresa Osborne. So we are in a very, very fortunate situation here in Pennsylvania because we are the only Commonwealth, the only state that dedicates lottery funding to support older adults in the community. So we are in a very fortunate situation because looking at other states, they don't have oftentimes as vibrant of a support system for older adults within the community. Primarily, our state funding comes from the Pennsylvania Lottery, with an exception of those areas that we're able to draw down federal dollars. And then here in Bucks County, going to the local level, we also receive a tremendous amount of support from the Bucks County Commissioners who support us on the local level. So then that touches that federal, state, and then local funding.
The money from the federal government then, does that get distributed in a block grant form? I believe that's the terminology in politics, right? Block grant,
yes,
you can use it for whatever you want.
That is.
Within parameters, how's that done? How's Pennsylvania get that money from?
So Pennsylvania receives that dollars from the feds, and then they allocate it to the counties. Now, of course, Bucks County is under the state's block grant system. However, our funding, our allocation from the Pennsylvania Department of Aging is a little different. We're under our own block grant, the Aging block grant, which is supported by the Lottery Fund. So when we look at the county's block grant, and our funding is allocated a little differently because that is dedicated dollars that's coming from the state's Lottery Fund.
If you take away the lottery funds, what do we have left?
Then what do we have left? Then it'd be those dollars that come to us from the feds to the state, and then we also have our county resources. So the majority of our state dollars does come from the lottery.
Right. What percentage would you say, like 50%?
It's hard to say year by year. It's a little different. It's based on the amount of dollars that the state can draw down from the feds, and then also there's the state match component, and then also there's the component that's allocated to us from the county commissioners. So I would say historically between Fed and state dollars combined, we're looking at anywhere from like 15 to 20% of our total allocation in Bucks County that is covered by the Fed and state combined, Fed and state match, and then the county commissioners support our other needs.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, as far as the lottery proceeds go, I know that it seems like that's used mostly for prescription drugs, or are there a lot of things that fall under that umbrella?
There's many supports and services that fall under the umbrella. Some that people have grown to know and love over the years, of course, is the PACE program, Pharmaceutical Assistance Contract for the Elderly, which assists people with their prescription drug coverage. So that is one program that the lottery supports. Another program that people are familiar with is transportation services.
Okay.
The local area agencies on aging offices have shared ride programs that assists those individuals that are looking for transportation to places like the library or grocery stores or medical appointments. So there's many different locations throughout the county that we're able to utilize lottery funding to support those individuals where they need transportation supports.
We had Leroy Fetterman from
Yes.
the Bucks County Transport
right.
come here. He was here earlier this year.
That's right.
And I was surprised at how robust that program is.
Very. It's a tremendous support for us to provide for consumers in Bucks County. And we're thankful to, of course, have the lottery fund to support the transportation program. Two other main areas that lottery will support as well is rent and property tax rebates for older adults,
Okay.
as well as all of the supports and services that are, once again, provided through our offices. In Bucks County, we've been around officially since 1973, when the commissioners designated our office as a county entity to support older adults in the community. And since then, we've grown to more than 20 programs that support older adults in the community. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at a host of programs that are supported, once again, by those federal and state dollars, primarily lottery on the state side, and then the county commissioners. When we look at the avenues that we typically support people in the community, we really look at three different paths that the 20-plus programs support people. The first path would be those individuals that want to remain connected to the community. Like here, we're in Central Bucks Senior Center today, a beautiful senior center in the county, one of 13 that we're happy to continue to support throughout Bucks County. We're looking at roughly, there's approximately roughly 550 to 600 senior centers across the Commonwealth. So those are some programs that are able to be supported by the local area agencies on aging.
Now, are they set up according to school district? Because
in-
it seems in Bucks County,
Yes.
there's one in each school district.
Yes, in Bucks County, we
Okay.
have historically allowed them to be set up to kind of coincide with our school districts.
Okay.
So that is how we've historically looked at our senior centers here to have the 13.
Okay, but that's not necessarily the way the rest of the Commonwealth operates.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We are required. To have at least one senior center to cover the entire county. So for the more rural counties, they may have fewer than 13, and those more populated areas like Philadelphia or Allegheny County, you'll see those areas they may have more than the 13.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it depends on the area. Still following down that same first path to ensure that we do our part to ensure people remain connected to the community. We have other programs like our volunteer program, Positively Aging Bucks County, which we accept applications from individuals that want to give back to the community. They're looking for a partner agency that they can volunteer with, and we kind of almost play that matchmaker for that individual to pair them up with a potential site in Bucks County that they can give back to.
Right. How many people have volunteered? How many people are on that?
Countywide, we have approximately 400 volunteers that support all kinds of nonprofits throughout the county, as well as many of our hospitals in the area. If it were not for our volunteers, the Bucks County Area Agency on Aging wouldn't have the reach in the community the way that we do today. So we utilize a lot of the volunteers for our own internal programs, like the senior centers. You look at the robust support through the senior centers, and you'll see a tremendous amount of volunteer support that helps the senior centers do what they do every day, including the home delivered meals programs throughout the county. We do utilize volunteer support to deliver those hot meals up to 5 days a week, or frozen meals to homebound consumers.
Okay, and I'm proud to say I had done that for about a year or two down at the Neshaminy Activity Center.
Excellent,
on
excellent.
Brownsville
We'll have
Road.
to call you back.
So, well, I get a call every now and then
That's
from
right.
I say, okay, I'll get there. I have a few more things on my plate to deal with, but I'll get back there because, yeah, I believe that you're going to have to give back for sure.
That's right.
And has the program been expanding? More volunteers as the tsunami of baby boomers have entered the senior force?
I would say there's been instances where we've seen some ebbs and flows. Now, the type of volunteer support that people are looking for may be a little different than some of the traditional sites that we would partner with. Not so much the organizations, but maybe the type of volunteer task that volunteer is interested in. We're starting to see a trend now that some people are more interested in short-term assignments as opposed to an assignment that may last years and years and years. We're starting to see some
Okay.
that may want to have an assignment, and sometimes assisting even administration with some higher level tasks like decision-making and assisting the organization or the department make some choices regarding the program. So we oftentimes use the eyes and ears and expertise from our volunteers to help us make decisions about the volunteer program to continue to make strides.
Okay, great.
So
There's one program, I don't know if it exists, or maybe one potential program, I should say. And that is, I've often thought about the elderly, and as the older you get, it seems like the more isolated
yes,
the potential is.
Yes.
Okay, for you to, I remember my grandmother who died at 96.
Yes.
Often saying, it's lonely when you get older. Even though I have my beautiful family around me, it's like my friends are gone. It's like, and that causes people, I suppose, to just pull back and be by themselves. And are there programs out there that can match people up, even if just for companionship? I know when I would deliver those Meals on Wheels, you just didn't go there and say, okay, here's your meal for the day.
right.
You went there and you sat down, because
That's right.
I might be the only person they saw that day.
Exactly,
Okay?
yes,
So,
yes.
is there anything on the horizon for that to start making that a larger piece? Or does it already exist?
So in some areas it does exist, and we look at going back to that first pathway for those individuals that want to remain connected to the community. If not through the senior centers, there's other opportunities to remain connected, whether it's, like I said, volunteering through the senior centers or our Positively Aging Bucks County program, or through Enterprise program. What we try to do is just do our part to make sure that individuals, whether it's in senior centers or other locations, have an ability to remain connected with the local community and their friends. So we're starting to see more trends for even volunteer programs across the Commonwealth look at companion type programs, companion programs where oftentimes they had been, the companion programs oftentimes looked at as individuals that needed additional support to stay healthy in the community, they may hire a home care agency to come in and provide that companionship. We're saying we're looking at ways to merge those two types of supports. You know, for those individuals that may not be able to afford home care or may not qualify for home care or even interested in home care, but we still want to be able to provide some type of companion support program to assist them in the community. You're looking at more volunteer programs or looking at pilots like that to partner people up with companions. So then that takes us down to like our middle path. For those individuals that need additional supports to stay safe in the community, that's where we have our care managers go into the home and complete a comprehensive assessment to see what the consumer's needs are and if there's anything we could do to assist them staying safe in their homes and in the communities. Oftentimes, our care managers may recommend, like home care we talked about, where an aide would come in and assist with their bathing, dressing, and grooming, their ADLs, or we may recommend an adult day center for the individual if their loved one has to work during the day.
ADL?
Yes, activities of daily living. So yes, I'm in a world of acronyms, so thank you.
I understand that. I know.
So if an individual has some support needs that they need assistance with, we may connect them with a home care agency to meet some of those needs: bathing, dressing, grooming, maybe some meal prep. So our care managers are then in the home, connecting that individual to a host of different support systems in the community, like emergency response buttons or medical equipment and supplies to really keep them safe in the community. And then we look down that final path, our third path that we typically take. That's where it's our responsibility to be consumer advocates and ensure that all older adults have the ability to live free from abuse, neglect, financial exploitation, and abandonment. So our care managers also receive calls 24/7 for those individuals that may be at risk for abuse. And it's our responsibility to go out and see if there's any supports that we could or should be putting in place to ensure that older adult is safe in the community. So those are the three general paths that we take. Those that want to remain connected to the community, those that need additional supports to stay safe, and then advocacy and protection, making sure that we're doing our part so people live free from abuse, neglect, financial exploitation, and abandonment.
Now, would that be where the ombudsman program comes into play? Is that the proper pronunciation?
Ombudsman, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so that is one of our advocacy roles, where those individuals that are receiving long-term care, oftentimes living in a nursing facility or another institution, our ombudsman would then accept calls or complaints from individuals, whether it's large or small, and it's our role to then go out to the facility to hear the consumer's concerns and their questions, and then address those with that individual. Oftentimes, sitting down, if it's necessary, sitting down with the administration or the social worker of the facility to try to meet the needs of that consumer. Like I said, whether it's questions that are large or small, we're able to address those concerns or complaints that come to us.
Okay, so that is the ombudsman is pretty much oriented towards facilities.
Yes,
Not, individual people living at home or.
So yes, technically the ombudsman is primarily to serve those individuals and institutions, but we still do accept and receive calls for individuals within the community as well. Whether it would be the ombudsman that would address those needs, or whether it be one of our care managers that would go out to complete an assessment to then try to address that consumer's concerns, we would decide upon the call.
Okay. And the care managers, do they usually involve themselves with people on a short-term needed basis, or is this usually a long-term? Once once a case manager is assigned, are they assigned to that person, to the end?
Correct. It could be short or it could be long-term, as long as the consumer is still in need of and interested in our supports in the community, then we can, or in the facility, then we will stay involved. It could be instances where we go in and we do our comprehensive assessment, and then we identify some supports for that individual. If they're pleased with that interaction, and it may be supports outside of our office, we're partnering them with other organizations to meet their needs. Oftentimes they may thank us and have no other immediate needs for our supports. But there are many consumers that we manage on a regular basis and care manage them on an ongoing basis, and oftentimes for years.
Mm-hmm. And not only in their home, but the case managers could follow those individuals into assisted living facilities and still be involved at that point, or do they hand it over to?
So in those instances, we would hand it over to the social service staff in the facility. But once again, there are some supports that we do have in place, such as the ombudsman program for those individuals that are in institutions where they may have complaints that need to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
Does something as simple as a phone call daily to make sure everything's okay, is that part of the system? For, almost like it's not quite companion care, because you figured there'd be a lot more involvement, but just a phone call to make sure that person who's living by themselves answers the phone.
Actually, we are required to have regular contact with the consumer, not only face-to-face, but also regular check-ins. So we do those phone calls, not daily for everyone, but we do have regular contact with our consumers. For those individuals that are pretty stable, we're still regularly communicating and contacting them, staying in touch with them face-to-face and phone. For those that need additional supports or we have some concerns, we may increase our frequency in the time that we're going out to see them or communicating with them and their caregivers.
Okay. You had mentioned about, or I had also mentioned about connecting with people, those people that are by themselves, et cetera, to make sure everything's okay. And I have a little story here about my grandmother again.
Yes,
and I learned a lot from my grandmother in her aging
yes.
process, okay, as to what I could expect as time goes on.
That's right.
And she was fortunate that my grandfather bought this little cabin, you could say, down on Long Beach Island back in 1950. He probably paid $10,000 for it. A lot of money, back then. But there was she lived there towards the end of her life, okay, before she had to come back home and nursing home, et cetera. But her and a neighbor lived catty corner to each other. And one of the things that they would always do every morning when they'd have their cake, one or the other would get the curtain and shake it. Okay, and then she'd wait for the other person to shake their curtain. Okay, we're both here today. Okay, and that's how they saw it, as because one of these days the other curtain's not going to shake.
That's right.
That's
right.
But I always thought that's great. Even though they may not see each other but once a week, they know there's they have a connection to something other than just their own, individual self.
Right.
There.
That's right.
Okay, let's see here. What's the balance between people needing services, okay, and the fact that there's limits to how much funding there is to help everybody?
Yes.
I know there's income limits for some services. There's asset limit for some services. How is that figured out? And what, I guess I'll just leave it at that. How's that figured out?
So the first thing we always say is for everybody who's contacting us to not be concerned about whether there's any income or asset limits to the program that they are interested in. Let us come out and complete an assessment to then kind of individualize their care and make sure that we're looking at their whole need. So once we've completed that comprehensive assessment, depending on oftentimes which funding stream is paying for their support, or depending on which program they may be interested in or eligible for, would then determine those whether there's any financial eligibility requirements, or whether the consumer would be able to be immediately assisted with that program. So each program would be individualized for that consumer. For those programs that do have some income limits, it's typically based on where the consumer falls based on the poverty level, whether they're what percentage above the poverty level they are, with the majority of our programs looking at anywhere from, say, 133% above the poverty level, up to even exceeding up to 300% of the poverty level. So it really depends on where that individual falls on that scale, but it does not preclude us from going out and assessing them and trying to ensure that we connect them to all the resources that could support them in the community.
Okay, is that a countywide type assessment, like, or it doesn't, like Upper Makefield? I imagine the average income up there is a lot higher than it is in Bristol Borough, but is it all put together as a countywide 133% of?
So the state office, the Pennsylvania Department of Aging, helps determine the eligibility limits. Some federal programs determine the eligibility limits for consumers and the program that they're applying for. Obviously, we have pockets of rural areas of the county, and we're a suburban county, most closest to urban Philadelphia. But each household that we visit is very different. Each consumer that we visit is very different, because you may have a situation where the consumer is living with their son or daughter or other family member, and their income may be limited, but their caregiver's income may be a little more substantial. So in a lot of our programs, we're really just focusing on that consumer. What are their needs? What supports do they have in the community? What type of caregiving supports do they already have? And if there were any questions related to their eligibility, we, in most cases, would look at their eligibility, their income.
Mm-hmm. For those with much lower income, I believe there's Medicaid.
Yes.
Right, okay, the health program, Medicaid, which is run by the Department of Public Assistance, I believe. Is that what it's still called?
Department of Human Services.
Human Services,
Yes.
okay, well,
Department of
things have
Public
changed
Welfare.
over the
Yes,
years,
changed just
yes.
recently.
Okay, so would that pretty much be the first contact, let's say, that an elderly person with needed, a Medicaid, or even a disabled person, I guess, up until they're 65, would that, how's that connected with, let's say, the Area Agency on Aging?
So when we're going out, we're not only looking at that individual's needs and what supports that could keep them safe, we're also looking at their clinical eligibility. So one of the first things we do is determine, is this an individual who is what we call nursing facility clinically eligible, where they then, once we've completed that assessment, have the option to either A, receive nursing facility supports, apply for residents in one of the nursing facilities in the area, or they have the option to receive supports in the community instead. And there's a program called the Aging Waiver Program, where those individuals are, just like the name, waiving their right to go into a nursing home to receive many of these supports in the community instead.
Okay,
So
is that the future direction and orientation, as much as possible?
It's actually been around for some time, and what we typically do, because the resources are very limited as far as trying to spread as many of the lottery state dollars out as possible, there are requirements that oftentimes we are required to assess that consumer, see if they're eligible for a aging waiver program or other waiver program, and then if they do not meet that eligibility requirement, then we look at Plan B or C or D. So we just basically try to connect them to the most appropriate program that could support them the most in the community.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think we've covered a lot of what I had down here to cover, except one thing. There we go.
Yes.
Tax return assistance.
Yes.
Is that something through your agency too, or is that AAA in the area?
So
That's right, you're AAA.
we are
Hey,
AAA.
That's right, that's the other
Not the-
group.
not-
AARP. Okay,
not the automotive club.
right,
though.
not the
We're
automotive
the
club.
other AAA.
Gotcha.
We do accept the applications in our office, and then we forward them on to see if the individual is eligible. So any questions or concerns or issues that people have related to older adults, we always ask people to contact our office. Our number is 267-880-2999. 5700, or people could even visit us online at aging@buckscounty.org. And any questions or concerns, people could complete a registration form online, or they could call us, and we were able to answer any questions that they have, including helping them fill out some of these applications.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Najja, for coming here today and enlightening us with all these programs. We will be broadcasting again next month. And next month we have someone from CARI, which is the Center for Advocacy for the Rights and Interests of the Elderly. They help with helping people detect Medicare fraud. Right now, they're estimated $60 billion a year in Medicare fraud because people, I guess, don't know what to be looking out for when they do get their statements in the mail. But I would imagine 60 billion would go a long way to funding a lot of programs in this country, okay? So, and to a certain extent, it's up to each and every one of us to look over those forms when we get them in. So we'll be here again, like I say, next month, the first Monday of next month. I won't say what month it is right now, but we'll see you then.